talk show animal. You're like one of those goddamn creatures out of Greek mythology. Half man, half desk.
Welcome to the Oilfield Leader Podcast.
Welcome to the Oilfield Leader Podcast. I am your host, Christian Lombardini. Today we are speaking with Mr. Pete Ibarra from Safety Solutions LLC, and we talk about mentorship, getting into the oil field, whether or not we'd want our kids getting into the oil field, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. It's a great conversation.
Good afternoon. On this episode of the Oilfield Leader, we are very honored to have Mr. Pete Ibarra from Safety Solutions LLC. Pete is an operations manager at Safety Solutions, but everyone there would pretty much agree that he is the chief people officer. There's nothing that goes on over there that he doesn't know. And when it comes to dealing with people, managing people, helping them achieve their goals, and helping them see themselves better than they are to achieve better for themselves and their company, there's no one better than Mr. Pete Ibarra. Pete, how long have you been at Safety Solutions?
I've been over there for 4 years, just over 4 years now. Yeah, it's been a blessing of my life. You know, when Safety Solutions, that opportunity presented itself to me, it represented more than just a place to work. And one of the stories I always tell is the interview process and how went in there and interviewed with the owner and several of the senior managers. And my intentions were to go in there and say thank you, but no thank you, because I'd have worked operations for over 15 years, right? I'm shit it and get it. I'm moving forward. I'm building teams. We're getting things done. And all of a sudden this safety company reaches out and they're like, hey, man, you should interview over there. And it come through a mutual friend of the owner and myself, and the opportunity came up, and so I dressed up, and you know, serious people are serious, right? And I grew up in an old school neighborhood, and so you're supposed to show up, shake hands, look people in the eyes, present yourself, say your name, that sort of stuff. And so I was under the impression these are serious people, and they are. So I showed up to say thank you, no thank you, and when he explained the vision, it just pulled me in. You know, I went home and I told my wife, I said, we're gonna make this change. We're gonna go from working on drilling rigs, from chasing mud holes, from working as a drilling superintendent. You know, I had done a little bit of consulting for about a year, and life brings you around in many different ways. And in this particular time, you know, I was working as part of a crew for a good friend of mine. And I showed up, and the owner starts just rolling out the vision, right? And you don't get a lot of leaders like that. You don't get a lot of people who are real, and the whole team was there, and you can tell it was just this thread, this consistency. And so it sucked me in, and 4 years later, I've got to say it's been a wonderful change for my family, for myself, for my personal development. Yeah, I'm over the moon.
Pete, let me ask you, you know, when any, I guess that's really what it is, but not many people will say it that way. So you weren't just offered a job, but you were sold on a vision. Like, how do you get sold on a vision? What was it that he said that was so compelling? Like, how did that turn you on?
You know, first of all, you sit down in a panel interview, right? And so right off the bat, you get the impression that this is serious. They're serious about the work they do. And they start asking these questions, pretty standard interview questions, and everybody's taking notes. And they're trying to make me nervous, but I've been here before, right? I've been in this war room before, and they're trying to make me nervous. And so I fold my hands and I lean in, and I'm going from person to person, from the number 2 spot to the number 5 spot. I'm trying to figure out what everybody's role is and what they want to hear and all those types of things. And I'm playing the game. And at the end of everything, everybody kind of puts their guard down, and they're just like, hey, this is what we really do, man. And we believe in it. And, you know, it was the first time I've ever sat down in an interview where you're not a lock for this position. We're looking for the right person. And it was that, maybe that hunt that, what do you mean? Wait a minute. You know, I know I murdered this interview.
Right.
But in the background, they're investigating, they're checking. And so that tells me, is like, this team is amazing. They've built it carefully. They're not just going to let anybody in. And
Right.
so went in, talked to him, second interview, talking to the owner, and he starts showing me around, and he gives me the story about how he started the business and all the struggles they've been through and some of the things they're proud of, and introducing me to their team members. And as he's walking me around, everybody's eyes light up. You know, nobody's like, oh crap, here comes the owner. It's
Right.
like, oh man, look at this guy. Hey, how's it going? And it's a wonderful environment. And I'm like, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. It's what I try to do when I build teams. I try to be a human.
Mhm.
People forget about the human.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's the owner, right? He signs all the checks. He looks at all the bills. He looks at every little mistake. He looks at absolutely everything, and they're excited to see him.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, this is a great team. I want to be part of a great team.
Wow. That is incredibly amazing, because that's something that I think a lot of guys who work in the oil field would say that they feel the opposite. They
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, exactly. They don't feel that there's a common purpose and that people have drunk the Kool-Aid, and they would assume that if someone drunk the Kool-Aid, they're being well compensated, you know, as a manager to pull that line, even though they don't believe it themselves.
Yeah.
So that's really hardcore to get an operator to really buy in. How was it when you started? Was there a mentorship program when you started, or was that something that you kind of developed on your own over time?
So, you know, a lot of people try to put together mentorship programs or these systems or these things. You can recognize them, right? They're right out of the box. They're checklists. There's
Yeah, your
once a month.
MBA, your Harvard MBA bullshit, right?
Right. And so at this place, everything was organic, right? And you get a sense that everybody means it, right? They mean the mistakes. They mean the positive things. Everything was like, hey, we're humans. We're building this thing. This is a real family. And when I say family, you know, old field people, they roll their eyes every time they say, oh, we're family. We spend more time. Everybody rolls their eyes, especially this younger generation, right? They're giving me that family line again. And I tell them, we're the kind of family that fights over Thanksgiving dinner. We're the kind of family that really has that positive friction, but we're also the kind of family that sticks together. We pull together, right? We support each other. If somebody's out making a decision on the management team, everybody's in line. We all agree. The mentorship program, it's not necessarily a program as much as it is a sense that if you have an issue, everybody drops what they're doing and they come and we attack this problem and we murder this problem.
Right.
And today it's my problem. Tomorrow it's going to be somebody else's problem. But that's what we do. When we have meetings, we encourage friction. We encourage discussion. When people sit there with their hands in their pockets, hey man, listen, you better say something, because tomorrow we're going to move forward with this decision, and everybody's expected to pull in the same direction.
Now, I get that when it comes to work. And first of all, that's hard enough when it comes to work. So I think that really speaks a lot to your team, because they also recognize that in their leadership, or anyone who puts forward a responsible solution, people pick it apart. You're like, you know what, that's the way to go. And you go that way. But as a person, can people talk to you about personal issues and not just work issues? Because you come to work as a person, and if I had a problem with my wife or I had a fight with my best friend, it's going to affect the way I feel that day.
So absolutely. One of the things we encourage people to do, especially through the mentorship program that I put together for my team, is I try to mirror some of those things that the owner and some of the senior management team and I have experienced together. So I'm not only interested in what you're doing at work. I'm terribly interested in what you're doing at work, but I'm also interested in how you're doing as a person. Some of the things we weave in together is personal finance, right? People who are happy at home are going to be happy at work. They're going to be productive. When they're worried about the bills, when they're worried about what's going on at home financially, they're worried about it all the time. You don't just switch that type of stuff off, right? So we have to be engaged. And for some of these young supervisors, when they come onto my team, I tell them, you know what my secret is? And they're like, what? Everybody's waiting right there on the edge of their seat. What's the magic fairy dust? What is, he's going to give me the pearl of wisdom right now. What is it? There's no secret. You got to mean it. You got to mean it, right? It's a muscle. You work it out until one of these days you wake up and you go and it's like, hey, we really care about these people. And what does caring look like? Hey, my guy's about to have a baby, which is, we have a scenario right now. One guy on our team is about to have a baby. And so I'm hounding him. How's mama doing? Have you checked in with her? How's the baby doing? I need to know how that baby's doing, because
Right.
you will be on an airplane if I have to buy you a ticket myself, if I have to drive you, if I have to pick up all your shifts. It's going to happen.
It's gonna happen. Yeah.
It's going to happen.
It's gonna happen.
It's those moments in life that we work for. It's important that they're important to me, and they are. That's a real thing. It's not a fabrication. It's not a falsehood. People can see through those things. I really care about it, and I reflect back on the 3 beautiful children I had, and the opportunities I had to be there, and what those days meant to me, and why I show up to work. And I have to pay that forward. I have to allow that for my person, for my guy.
Right.
So
Right.
you got to mean it. That's the secret. There's no secret.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. It really is, because I frequently said, no one comes out here to West Texas for God and country. No one does that. We come out here to get paid. But when we're out on the job, we don't do it for the money.
Yep.
We do it for the brotherhood of the man to the left and the man to the right. Because exactly as you said, it has to be, you have to take care of that man, because tomorrow it could be you.
That's right.
And you pray that someone is caring enough to come around the corner of a weir tank, say, and be like, brother, are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you need a hand? And you have to be that way. That's one of the things I think is incredibly special about the oil field, because there's no sentimentality at all about the oil field, dude. A pump jack, if you put your hand in the wrong place, it will rip your arm out.
That's
It
right.
does not matter. If you step over iron and something goes wrong at a frac site, you are in a bajillion pieces. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Iron don't care. You are a dead man. And we all have to live with that. But isn't that even more precious, to care about the person? Because we almost take hands like almost for granted, right? Like they're just another tool. If I get rid of you, I'll replace you with somebody else, and maybe I'll get away with paying them $2 cheaper. But without the people, it doesn't get done.
That's another thing we talk about in the mentorship program. Again, I hate to call it a program, because it's just the way we live life, man.
Right, brother.
It's got to be a part of who you are. That's the main focus. It's got to be genuine. But another thing we talk about is, listen, you got to find your why. I know my why, and I can talk about it all day. I can sit here for 3 hours, and I can tell you about my past life and what this opportunity to work out here in West Texas means to me. And when my wife had our first child, and he just changed my life. When you come home and you look at those little eyes, and they don't give a shit you're tired. They just don't care.
Right.
They're hungry, and they need clothes. And this sense of responsibility just stacks on top of you. And all of a sudden, everything you did and all the fun you want to have and everything just kind of gets set aside, and this responsibility comes to the forefront. And I'm very aware of that. And so I have 3 beautiful boys, and I tell everybody, my job is to push my blood on this planet forward as far as possible, right? I was pushed forward. My job is to push my blood forward. And how do I do that? I wake up every day. I perform with excellence wherever I'm at. If I was flipping burgers, I would be the best damn burger flipper you ever.
Hell yeah.
Man, that thing would look better than the commercial, right?
Right.
And I would come out and check, and I would, hey, are you enjoying is there anything else I can do for you, sir?
Right.
With a smile, because that's the service we deliver. That's fueling my future. And in my future, my kids are going to go to college. They're going to have opportunities to learn things I didn't learn. They're going to learn from my mistakes. I go as far as journaling and making sure they read these experiences that what I'm going through. Memory is so faulty. But that's my why. And like I said, I can talk about it for 3 hours. I won't do it because I don't want to chew up all the time.
Are you good?
But what I tell my guys is, you got to find their why.
Right.
We love talking about I want to talk about my kids and how I'm so proud of them and what he did. He took his first steps and he said his first words. Yeah. Whatever, dude. What's your guys' why? And how can I help you get there?
Right.
Somebody helped me get to this point, which I'm not done by far.
Right.
I'm not done. And I can never pay my mentors back. But what I tell these people is, I have a debt to this life, and I owe it to the next person. My guy who's having a baby right now, he's got to go home and he's got to see that. My other guy who's putting his kids in t-ball and softball for the first time ever, he's going to every single game. Dude, I remember the years with an S that I paid for and facilitated t-ball games and practice and never made it to one.
Wow.
My wife raised my children like she was a single mother, bless her heart.
Yeah.
And she put up with me and making this shift like I said, this company has been a blessing for me. Making this shift has allowed me to be there for my children.
Would you?
And so,
I'm sorry. Go.
yeah, and so I can never pay back. I can only pay forward, right? And so part of my why has become, yes, my children in that fueling that future, but also paying forward and finding those people to mentor, right? And if they'll have me, because there's a permission that goes both ways on that deal, right? Just because a guy has potential doesn't mean he wants your answers, man. He may not be in that place. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to find a team that you can work with. Yeah.
Yeah. Timing is very important, because I think Earl Nightingale wrote in The Strangest Secret, it's like, and I think that it was a poll, like an actual survey that they went to grammar schools and they said, 8th grade, whatever, how many of you want to be rich when you grow up? It was like 95%.
Sure.
And then they tracked it over time, and they went after 20 years, they followed all those people. And then they asked them, are you successful? And, have you made that fame or that success that you want? Dude, not even 5%.
Wow.
Not even 5%.
How sad.
How sad. And they all said that they wanted it. So how did they wind up going sideways? And I think that you brought up a really good point. It's your mindset that's going to change everything. The ordinary person sees it as something good or bad is happening to me, where the extraordinary person sees it everything as a challenge. And as you said, there's no particular program, because it's a mentality from the jump. It's how I think from the get-go, and everything is a challenge, and everything is to be figured out and overcome, and then try to teach people how to do that.
Yeah, I think people lose sight, especially in this social climate we have right now. Everybody wants that equality, right? And people lose sight of the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit, that hunt, the thrill of the hunt. People want the result, but they don't want to engage in the battle, right? And it's that battle, those small things, that rent that's due every day. And when you stop paying it, the results of that come and smack you in the face. And then people externalize it. It's natural. It's human nature. Somebody else's fault, and why it has such shitty luck,
right?
And it's like, you made bad decisions. That's the next natural step.
Yeah, that's how does the meme go? Like, I'm sorry the situation is the natural consequence of your shitty decisions.
Yeah, imagine that.
But and one thing that I think about sometimes, and like I see the memes, and I know anti-work obviously on Reddit, and obviously, and it's like, but let's talk about hustle culture. And obviously, like anything, there's a bad extreme to anything,
Sure.
anything. But, and a lot of people deride a lot of people deride LinkedIn as just a bunch of posers posing to a bunch of other posers. Okay, copy, got it. However, as you said, like, I think a lot of people have forgotten that you have to bust your ass, or you're not going to get anywhere. And then I want to make all claims and allowances, because remember, we're talking about, we're middle-aged guys working in Midland, Texas, one of the richest parts of the country. We earn very, very, very good money relative to everybody who works around us. But to see people who don't want to do the work and then complain that other people have it all, it really bothers me. And I sleep well at night, but it bothers me because I'm like, guys, life is a challenge, and learn the rules of the game that you're playing.
That's right.
And then you can do better. Stop complaining about the game. You have no choice. This is the game you were born into. You can either bitch on the sidelines, or you can figure out how to move forward. And I like I said, I don't want to take away from struggles, because there are single parents, brother, working 3 jobs, barely keep that shit together.
Yeah.
All respect. But at the same time, there's always choices.
Yeah.
And you can always vote with your feet, and you can always take a hardcore stand. And I think a lot of people are not willing to take a hardcore stand.
Yeah, so, even going back to the mentorship program with our guys, a lot of people don't feel like they're prepared for this. And I'll get to the point here. I'll tie it back in here in a little bit. A lot of people don't feel like they're prepared, and they're scared, and they're in a position where they don't, man, what do I do? I'm not 100% ready to rock and roll, right? And I tell people, hey, you're supposed to make mistakes. Here's the secret. Stay away from the fatal mistakes. Make mistakes at a control rate. Use your mentorship. Use the people around you, the resources you have. You have more resources in your pocket and your cell phone than more technology than they had on the NASA space shuttle in 1969, right? They made it to the moon, and you can't make it to your next job interview. Shame on you. You know what I mean? Going back to these other people who just, they have this mentality, they're going to quit. Oh, well, I don't want to be here anymore. Well, maybe you haven't found your why. You're not understanding that this burger flipping opportunity or this greeting opportunity, this waiting tables opportunity is fueling your future. You're not leveraging your resources the way you should, right? If you don't learn how to be excellent in the small things, then you're not going to have bigger things put upon you. I mean, the Bible says it, and the quote escapes me right at the moment.
If you can be trusted with a little, you'll be trusted with a lot.
That's right. And so Angela Duckworth in her book Grit has the grit scale, and it's one thing that I've been meditating on this whole week. You know, going back to what I said earlier, you know, I was gone in the oil field. That is a lot of hours, a lot of shifts, a lot of responsibilities, and my wife raised my children as a single mother for all intents and purposes, and she had that grit to push through. And when I came home, she greeted me with a smile, and that's why she can be late all the damn time. That's why she can, you know, spend money on foolish things. That's why she can aggravate the crap out of me, because she had that grit. And so I give her the same grit. We're two gritty people.
Right.
And so for every argument, for everything in this life that we're going to meet, we're going to push through it, because there's no quit in us. Right. And so that's one thing we want to leave as an inheritance to our sons, is that grit. You got to push through. You can't stop at the first roadblock. You can't. You'll never get anywhere in life. You're going to be on the couch. You're going to be 500 pounds. You're going to be wondering why your luck's so shitty and nobody ever gives you anything.
Right. No, you have to work forward. And that's a question I had. Would you want your kids to work in the oil field?
Interesting. That's a very interesting question. I'm going to say yes, because of the opportunity that's allowed. Probably, definitely not the same path that I took.
Right.
I would like for them to use my experience as a springboard. I know that sounds like a naive father, and you know, men grow up and have to make their own mistakes and all those sorts of things, and cut their own path, and I respect that. But if I had my rathers, I wouldn't want them to follow my path. I know there's bigger things out there. My eyes weren't big enough, you know, and I've done well for myself. Could have done better, could have done worse. Right. But I'm thankful every day for where I'm at right now and the experiences I've had. But to answer your question, yes, I would like that for them to be a part of the oil and gas industry, maybe not the path that I took.
Got you. No, and I understand that, because it's something that if you don't work this job, even your spouse, no matter how close they are, if they don't work this job, they can't really understand.
Oh, yeah,
and
you got to experience it.
You have to experience it. And that is one thing that I will forever love the oil field for, because it has advanced me so much in self-reliance, in self-development, in realizing that I can do so much more than I thought was possible, because it was demanded upon me.
Yeah.
And I, you know, and to the shock of my wife and my family, you know, I will say, I would want my son to work in the oil field. You know, maybe not make it a career, but he should most definitely do this for a year. If he did that for 1 year, even on a 1 week on, 1 week off rotation, right? So he basically only works 6 months, it don't matter. Because then he will really understand what hard work is like and be humble when he moves forward.
Yeah.
Because we all want our kids to advance, but you never want to forget your roots. They say that your fortunes are lost in the third generation, because now the third generation's gotten soft.
Sleeves
and they
to
forgot.
sleeves in 3 generations.
That's what's up. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you another thing, Christian. Kind of going back to that mentorship. One of the things I try to do is see people with that grit, that hustle mentality, that get it done, right? That something that's in their being that can't be taught. The rest of it we can teach it. I promise you.
Yeah.
I promise you we can teach it. This is simple work out here, but you got to be a go-getter. You got to be a self-starter. You got to wake up in the morning and you got to get after it. You know, I walk through the shop and I look around. If somebody's standing around, he'll never make it. But somebody, you know, he finishes one job and he finds another one to do. The guy stays busy, and then he finds you. Hey, what else can I do? How can I help? How can I help? Those are the guys. Okay, you passed the first test.
Right.
Now we'll give you more.
Right. But like as you say, everyone is at a different level of development. So you could find that guy. Like I know someone who's like that. Like he cannot. Like he literally says that I can't sit still. Like I need to be doing something. It's that's just a person. That's just a character thing to him.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not saying that he would make a great manager or not make a great. Personally, I think that he would. But you know, you find someone who keeps on hustling and then is trying to uncover that why. And I want to angle something back to what you said, because I think this is also a big deal, is that sometimes we don't realize there's more for us.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that we can be more. And no one clues us into that and then gives us the road. That's one of the big powerful things that I see in you, Pete, is that you're able to recognize when someone is at that tipping point of intelligence, right? Industriousness, like they want to do a good job because that's what they want to do. And they have an inkling of doing better.
Yeah.
And I think that you are able to latch on to someone like that and really show them the right path.
Well, if there is a shortcut, Christian, it's going to be exactly that. You find the person who has those bare bones, and then you start giving them direction. And like we said earlier, they got to be ready to accept that direction from you, right? They got to be looking for it. They have to be in a place where they've made some mistakes. Maybe they have something that they're ready to make a change.
But why do these guys have such hardcore egos? And they're like, no, it's okay, man. No, it's all right. No. And they keep going, banging their heads into the wall over.
Yeah, those
and
guys
over.
aren't ready.
They're not ready.
They're not ready.
They're
They haven't
definitely
made
not
enough
ready.
mistakes yet, right? They haven't. You know, and that's fine. That's fine. Some people don't, and I'm not encouraging. I'm not saying we have to find these lost souls or what.
Right.
I'm just saying that when people are in a place in their life where they're willing to accept some kind of mentorship, they become like that. One of the most powerful things you can do is relate one thing to another. And what I tell people all the time is, people are people, but this is going to sound wrong. It's like taking that $1,000 driver out to the range and you don't know how to use it, and you start smacking that ball and you're confused, like, why the hell am I not driving this thing 400 yards straight down the middle? Why? Well, because you don't have any damn direction. You don't have any training. You don't have any mentorship.
You suck.
Yeah, you suck, man. You suck at it. And you're starting out and you suck at it. And are you going to let it stop you, or you get frustrated and you're like, fuck it, I'm not good at golf? And so you set that $1,000 driver, and then you whip out that $5,000 Lapua, the 338 with the night force glass, and you take it out to the range. And I'm like, I'm gonna nail this thing at 1,000 yards, right? I'm not gonna warm up. I'm not gonna hand load anything. I'm not gonna do any of the work that it takes to get there.
Right.
I'm just gonna fucking
Not even gonna
thing.
zero this
Fuck
bitch.
no. It's a $5,000 scope sitting on a $10,000 rifle. It's gonna get there, right? And then you suck again.
And you suck again.
And I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter how precise that tool is. If you don't aim it in the right direction, you're just gonna get big ass mistakes in the wrong direction.
That's damn right. That is damn right. And I love the shooting example, especially at long distance, because, and I think that we talked about this briefly one time in the past, is, you line up the sights, like you want to hit your target, whatever that target is, a goal you want to achieve, a girl you want to impress, a wife you want to get over an argument, whatever it is. If you don't line those sights up properly, that 1 millimeter you're off means you're off by 1,000 yards downrange, and you are so way off. Because to marry this thought, what people say is all about them.
Yeah.
But what you hear is all about you. So could you imagine, if you're not precise on the mark with your words, how far astray that's going to get? Now you got arguments you didn't even ask for.
Yeah.
Shit.
And I'll give you a little bit of insight into the mentorship that I have with my guys. We can take the analogy further, and we can take any analogy further, right? So
Right.
One of the things I really believe in is this whole life is a teacher, and you can learn anything from anyone, right? And you have to have an open mind. So let's say you're wanting to sight in your brand new gun at 3 feet. You're standing right in front of it, point blank. It's an easy problem, right? Show up to work on time.
Right.
Easy.
Right.
Boom. Nailed it. Got it done. Let's take 10 steps back. Now I have to find something that's difficult that I have to learn where I can add value. I have to identify it. I missed. You got a couple of flyers in there, but you know what? You stay after it, and before you know it, you're deadly at 10 feet.
Right.
And then you step back again, and now at 50 yards, at the limitations of that, oh crap, what are we going to do now? I want that promotion. Right? I want that to add that value. Now I have to add value. Now I have to supervise people. Now I don't just have to perform well, but I have to teach people how to perform well. Oh man, that's difficult. You're going to suck at that for a while, buddy. you better have some grit. If you're gonna work around people and you're gonna show up on time every day, that's in the bag. We did that, 25 yards ago. You're gonna perform well. All right, that's in the bag. We got that 10 yards ago. But now you have to work through people, and you're gonna miss, and you're gonna miss, and you have to have the grit and the determination to show up on time and perform well and gain people's trust. And before you know it, you're gonna be hitting in that X ring.
Right.
And when you hit that X ring, oh man, now you shift just a little bit and you're way off. Now you show up, you're walking down the hall and you're like, somebody says, "Hi boss, how you doing?" And you just look at him like, "Oh, whatever. Oh man, Pete's a fucking asshole. He didn't even say hi to me." You missed just a little bit and then you're dumping out trust.
Yeah, that's it.
You're missing small, and it's just a huge, the more you climb up that ladder, the more you influence you have, the less ability you have to have a bad day. The more your sphere of influence, the more you got to watch yourself. You got to be careful. You got to make sure you're not only performing well, but your perception of your people, they understand. You have to say, "Hi, hey man," it's not enough to smile. Now you have to go shake hands and ask about, "How's your day? How's everything going?" And you got to mean it.
You got to mean it.
And at 1,000 yards, when you're finally running your own company, when you're shooting that 1,000-yard shot, everything matters.
Everything.
The curvature of the earth matters.
Hell yeah.
Is it hot? Did the sun come up?
Right. What's the dew point?
Oh boy.
Right.
When are we cashing these invoices? If they're coming in sooner, it matters. If you're waiting 90 days, it matters to get paid. Everything matters.
Everything matters. And how would it be though? Because see, I think a lot of guys who hear this, they would love to find someone like that. What are a couple of the things that the mentors have told you in the past that help you self-motivate? Because you're going to have a lot of guys out there that don't have a structure, and it's not for the lack of like their managers, because leadership starts from the top.
Yeah.
And I think we've discussed that you can have an operator that may or may not care, but if his manager doesn't care, 100% now that operator is not going to care, because he sees that it's not going anywhere, getting anywhere, no matter how good he is. So what would you recommend, or like I say, what's some advice that some mentors have given you that some other guys could use as kind of self-motivation?
Well, I really feel like that motivation has to be internal, right? It's got to be your why.
By definition,
you have to reconcile the fact that how I'm going to put my kids through college, how I'm going to feed my family, how I'm going to keep the lights on at home. This is how I do it. And that, when you make that connection, Christian, what you do deserves your best, right? So you can do it for whatever you do it because you want to please the boss. You do it because you want to please your team, and those things eventually fizzle out because teams shift and the boss's opinion could change or whatever.
Right.
But my future is tethered to the way I fuel that future. So that's my why. You got to find your own why. So the motivational piece is kind of tricky. Motivation fades. There's some real consequences to me not showing up every day. One day you look in the mirror and you shave and you're like, shit, if I don't go to work today, these lights are going to get shut off. That's a real deal. Nobody's coming to save us, to borrow some of those military terms, right? Nobody's coming to save us. We have to perform. And that's worth my best effort. And as long as you show up and give it your best effort. Another thing, you have to have integrity, right? Everybody makes mistakes. But when you make a mistake and you sweep it under the rug and somebody finds it, it doesn't really matter how big that mistake was. You got to start wondering, this guy, is he stealing from me? Is he cheating me? Is he lying to me? Because he's got a history. His credit's bad. His trust is bad. But when somebody breaks something that says, hey, I broke it. Here it is. How do we fix it? Hey, man, we all make mistakes. Now, depending on the size of your problem, you may have to be in on the fix, buddy. You may have to dig in your wallet and be a little responsible for that deal.
Right.
But, if you got a flat tire because you weren't paying it, something like that's a cost of doing business or something, like, hey, man, let's have a conversation. I can see in your eyes that you really meant it. I'll tell you what. Why don't you help me change this tire out? And then we go around and check all these other, just make sure it doesn't happen again. Let's find some sustainable change. If it's we uncover something that the company's been doing wrong, and we find a serious fix, and that's worth more than the damn tire, worth more than the mistake, right? So those two things, you have to have integrity. And then finally, one of the most precious piece of of advice that I got from an area manager when I was a drilling superintendent. He said, Pete, you got to run your business wide open. Right. And I'm like, what do you talk about wide open? He said, never be afraid of audits. Welcome them.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to audit your business, you welcome. As a matter of fact, if you feel unsure about how your business is going, you go call for an audit. Go call for the checklist, because as you're going in the wrong direction, it widens and widens, just like that shot, just like that golf shot. It gets bigger and bigger, the problem. Eventually, you have to ask yourself, what's the next natural step? Now, I tell people all the time, you cost me $500 worth of damage. We're gonna fix that. You know, your punishment is you're gonna live. You're gonna work for that. You're gonna pay that back. You know, with effort and productivity. If you cost me $500 every day for the next year, and we got a $50,000+ problem on our hands, there's very few people who can survive that. You know, what are you gonna do? We have to solve that situation, and people, that's a fatal mistake.
Right.
And so, run your business wide open, have integrity, and find your own damn why. Wake up in the morning, get after it. Get after it. I love Jocko Willing in his, you know, taking a picture of that watch every day. I love it. I love looking at it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's something that we see a lot in the oil field too, is people trying to push off work or push off responsibility. And it's funny because sometimes the less work you actually have, the less you want to do. I've seen that in quite a few operators, and we've talked about that in the past. Because really, I think it comes from either like and I don't know, I'm just kind of rolling with it, right? Like either a hero mentality or a victim mentality. And a victim, like, shit is always happening to them. And a hero says, I may not like where I am, but I'm in charge of getting myself out of it. And when I managed, I would tell my guys, you know, the world outside the fence is scary. The world inside the fence, in this job, you can learn everything there is to learn about this job. My job is to help you learn everything there is. With enough time, you are the master of this universe.
Sure.
But you have to be willing to do that. Because as we said, if you can be trusted with a little, you can be trusted with a lot. And outside the fence is where things get complicated, right? Taxes, paying the rent, your girlfriend got pregnant, you lost a ton of money in Vegas. Things happen in the outside world. But I think that a lot of the really good things about the oil field translate out, such as being present. Like you said, you can tell when some guys, they've checked out or they're not there. They're not paying attention to the job. They are there 100%. And then guys that don't. Helping someone find their why is really difficult, Pete.
Some people don't want to find it. Some people just want to have a good time. Some people want to go to the bar, right? And have good time, Charlie. They want to go to the bar. They want to hang out with the buddies. They want to do all these things. They want, and they hide it behind calling, I want to live my life.
Yeah.
I don't live to work. I work to live, right? And then they get to the end of their day with no discipline. They get to the end of their paycheck and they're just, hey, can I get an advance? And these habits, they're even blind to their own habits.
Right.
And so to your point, one of the wonderful things about the oil field is everything we do out here is serious.
Deadly
if you're working
serious.
around chemicals that can kill you in the heartbeat, you're working around iron that's a light piece of metal's 500 pounds and knock your leg off if it rolls into you. Everything we work around is serious, and you have to take it serious. And people come out here and they roll the dice and they're like, that's not for me. There's no way that's crazy. I'm not doing that. That's insane. And hey man, there's processes, there's procedures. We've been doing it for 100 years and we're going to do it for another 100 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
God
Our
willing.
goal is to do it safely. Everything we do, we need to make sure we do it safely, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? You got to be interested. You got to pay attention. It's simple. And to your point, that mentorship, we come behind, we check up, we audit, we look at people and their processes and how they're working. And if they're not doing the right thing, we pull them aside before they run into those accidents, those incidents. They damage equipment, they hurt themselves, other people, those types of things. Pull them aside and we put them through those progressions. Hey, let's talk about this. Do you remember this? What about this part of your job? And I've told people several times, Christian, I told them, I say, we're going to help these guys. We're going to help them become better employees, or we're going to help them find other jobs. We're going to help them. By God, we're going to help them.
Right.
And some of these guys, they make wonderful lawyers, but they are horrible for working out here in the oil and gas.
Yes.
And so we don't waste any more of their time, and please don't waste any more of my time.
Right.
But, before we go down that road, I always tell people, anytime you sever the connection between the way somebody, a person and the way they pay their bills, we need to do everything we can. Mm-hmm. We owe it. We owe it to our people to make sure that we take them aside and we talk to them and we put them through the performance improvement and we track it and we check in with them and we do all those types of things and follow up and make sure that they have all the resources. But you said something very simple. They got to do it. They got to do it. And it's simple, but a lot of people don't do it.
Right. Yeah. It's really disheartening because you meet a lot of guys who are very sharp. They got a lot of things going, and somehow they just keep crashing their heads into the wall.
Yeah.
I was very lucky when I attended Whittier College that I was a part of the college hearing board.
Mm-hmm.
And this was basically the last stop before you got kicked out of school.
Yep.
So, for example, making up example, let's say you're drinking in the dorm and you're underage. Your RA, from the floor, he's going to come, he's going to talk to you. If you keep doing it, then you're going to talk to the person who's in charge of the dorm. If you keep doing it, then you're going to talk to the dean.
Yep.
And it's getting worse and worse. And so we're now at the last step. What I learned at the college hearing board, and it was fascinating because we had access to documents that even the parents couldn't have. We had your whole school history. And it was 2 students and 2 professors. And one thing that I learned there is that, and Jim Rohn, he echoes the same thing. He's like, it's not just enough to say you made a mess. You can't leave them in the mess. You have to give them a path to move forward, to get them out of the mess. So a lot of times, and it was very painful and difficult to say that someone had to leave the college, but there was always the component, how could they come back? Alcohol, right? That was a big thing, right? Alcohol counseling, anger counseling, and do a semester at a community college. If you can solid that, we welcome you back here with open arms. We're waiting for you. And there has to be a path of redemption. A lot of people don't even see there's a redemption path.
So that's one of the things I always tell my young supervisors, because everybody wants to go through. It's like, what do we do now? We're going to write them up, bring them in, set them down.
So horrible, yeah.
Yeah, so we're okay. And so,
exercise authority instead of judgment.
So I try to catch them beforehand. We're going to bring this guy in. All right, pretend I'm him. Write me up. What are you going to do? Give me that performance improvement plan. Give me that corrective action, whatever you want to call it, that documented conversation. Whatever you want to call it, give it to me. All right, and then they get to the end of it, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? What? I didn't do. What do you mean? He's part of your team. What are you going to do to help him get? Now, all this stuff sounded great. You're going to show up an hour early. You're going to do all this. You're going to take on all these other tasks. You're going to do all those things until I include them. And I'm like, how are you going to help them? Oh, well, it's a lot. Oh, it's a lot of work. Why isn't it a lot of work for them? It's a lot of work now that you're involved, now that you're included. Listen, he's part of your team. And so it's your responsibility to get them to that point where he's a productive member of your team. It's either your responsibility to do that or identify him as somebody who's not going to make it and make the change. Well, like I said, we don't make those changes lightly. That person has a kid at home. He's got a wife at home. He's taking care of his mother. Yeah. There's all these things that you have a why that you hold it so close to your chest. He's got a why, even if he can't identify it. There's something he's fueling. Right. They're fueling. And for you to just unplug that like a damn bully, you're not a good supervisor.
No.
You have to learn how to make that connection. To your point, that redemption, and outline the path and how we're going to get there and set up the checkup points and make sure you follow up with them and give them that feedback. There may be a lot of things that you're doing that's blocking that person from moving into that redemption piece. There may be a lot of things you're not doing to give them that roadmap. And a lot of times leadership is just standing in the mirror and like, what am I doing?
Right.
And let me tell you something. Making mistakes on a leadership level means sometimes you have to sit there and say, what did I do to lose a good employee? Why are my good employees performing badly? Right? You got to scratch your head and like, what role do I have? What What excuse did I put up? What did I encourage? Did I go out drinking with these guys this weekend and now I'm pissed off because they showed up late on Monday? Did I facilitate that? Did I know something was happening? I didn't do anything about it. Right? Did I let them think that it was okay by not lifting a finger whenever they had this conversation about this thing they were going to do that turned out to be a mistake? Well, I tell these guys, I'm not a smart man. And so I have to boil this world down to its basic principles so I can digest it and then give it to my people. And so I always tell people, always ask yourself, what's the next natural step? You perform well, you put yourself in a position to strike, all of a sudden a position becomes available. You're the next natural step. You've already been doing the job. But now if you're sitting there whining and complaining and like, I don't get paid to do that, you're never going to get there. I don't want that person sitting next to me in my leadership table. I don't want that. Like, oh God, get away from me, you complainer. Like, holy crap, man.
Yeah.
You couldn't build enough widgets for me to want to sit next to you.
Right.
On the other side of that, kid comes in on his days off. Hey, what do I do? How can I help you? Do you mind if I do that? Is there a good time for me to come in? Can I ask you for 5 minutes of your time so I can sit down and chisel out this path? Oh man. Yeah, absolutely. I've had people tell me that throughout my career. I can't pay you. I didn't ask you to pay me. I'm learning right now.
Right.
And then people wonder, like, how did you do that so quickly? How did you get to a superintendent role so quickly? I performed. I showed up. I asked questions.
Right.
To your point, in a place where people have this ego where they're beating their chest, and if they want my help, they'll come ask me. I went out there and I stole those opportunities.
Yeah.
I showed up and asked those questions and performed time and time and time again, reliably. Never complained. Of course, when I went home, my wife heard the complaints.
Of course.
My peer group and everything, like, holy moly, man, I don't know how much I can keep up with this. This is just fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And then you show up, service with a smile. How can I help?
That's it. Yeah.
One of the things I told my 14-year-old son, because he starts getting to that place where it's like, why do I have to? How come I always have to? I said, son, if you're a rock star, the curse of the rock star is you're going to get your number called often.
Yes, that's right.
But that's a blessing. The more you
is.
get your number called, the more experience you have. The more you get to master your craft. The more you get to that next level. Just don't ever forget that after you get to that next level, there's another one.
Right.
And another one.
And another. And that's so for someone who want, and I want to make very clear that you're absolutely right. When you're a leader, you have a responsibility that never stops.
That's right.
And it's like showtime all the time. And the more you become, it's like any other skill. The better you get at it, the more you want to do it. And it becomes not a badge of honor to be busy all the time, because activity is not the same as achievement. But when you realize that you're in a place where people depend on you, that they call you because they know that you're measured, you're calm, you're logical, you have a servant's heart, and you're truthful, people flock to that. People flock to that because in a world where people are so full of shit, trying to sell you shit, don't know shit, and then try to push that shit on you, it becomes very difficult to stand on your own. Especially when, like as your son says, why do I have to? Well, you have to because if you don't, someone else is going to do it, and you're not going to like the way they're going to do it for you.
That's right. Yeah, one of the quotes I really love is, if you don't create your own system, you're going to be a slave to somebody else's system.
That's it.
Right. And so if you don't go out there and do it and happen to this world's going to happen to you. One of those two things is going to happen. And even when you're creating your own system, there's going to be those times and hiccups where you miss, and you have those flyers like we were talking about in the shooting analogy. You're going to have these mistakes that happen, and it's just a matter of the boxing analogy. You got to get back up. You got to get after it again. You got to keep on getting after it.
My brother has a saying that if you're not thinking 5 steps ahead, you're already 3 steps behind.
That's right.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that we're playing all kinds of games all the time at work. And what do I mean by a game? Obviously, Simon Sinek, I know that you're familiar, right? He has a very good definition of infinite and finite games and infinite games. But what I mean by a game is that there's participants and there's rules.
That's right.
And there's outcomes. I think, stripped to its very basics, right? There's participants, rules, and outcomes. So what does that mean? Your job is a game. Your relationship is a game. Your friendships are a game, because there's participants, there's rules,
That's right.
and there's outcomes. And any game that you want to play, if you don't know those rules, you're going to have your ass handed to you really fast.
Yeah.
And it behooves you, or you better damn get your freaking ass on it to learn the rules of the game you're playing. So if you're going to come out here to the oil field, you can lean back and you can have a high-paying job. And maybe there's someone who's a little worse employee than you. You're not the lowest one, so you can skirt by. But really, what aim are you shooting for? And I like your point very much, Pete, that everyone has to discover their why.
Yeah.
Why are they doing what they're doing? And I find that people who have a very powerful why, they are excellent employees.
Yeah.
Excellent employees.
Yeah, you can't stop them.
No, because there's a reason for why they come to work. And as the Japanese saying is, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
That's right. I tell my guys, everything you do, you're always practicing for that next game, that next level, right? Why do you take the trash out? You're a manager. You shouldn't be taking out. The trash has to be taken out, right? Whenever you move to that next level and the trash has to be taken out, are we going to let it pile up just because it's not your job? And I'm making air quotes here. It's not your job. Right. Everything matters. Remember in that scenario where we're shooting 1,000 yards off, and the curvature of the earth and the dew point and the sun, you're going to shoot different. And Tiger Woods talks about it at a level that excellent that the ball's going to roll different in the morning and it's going to roll in the afternoon. Right? And you're not willing to put in the time and practice and do those things that it takes to be that excellent. And then you wonder why you're not making your putts. You're wondering why you're not hitting your targets. You're wondering, and you're developing these negative results, and you're like, oh man, I'm just no good at this. This isn't working out. Right.
Wallace Waddle says, you don't know the end result of the smallest action or inaction. You don't know the results of that. Taking a left versus a right.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy who lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and I've often wondered how he must torture, or he may have tortured himself, thinking, if I would have gone left or gone right, if I would have decided to walk to the market, if I would have taken the car, if I would not have been angry, I would have paid attention, I wouldn't have lost my leg.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that it's really important for people to remember, Pete, like you said, that every moment is very important because it sets up the next moment.
Yeah, that's right.
It's vital. It's vital.
You have to take the opportunities that are given and make the best out of them. I tell people, especially, this is one thing I'm trying to teach my son. You know, why do we have to do all this extra work? Why do we have to do all this extra preparation? I said, life rolls around, and these opportunities, just like a tumbles a cycle in a dryer, these opportunities just float around, and then one of these days you're going to say, I could have jumped on that. But financially, I'm not in the best place right now, so I didn't invest in Bitcoin when it was, 2 cents a coin.
Right.
It seemed interesting, but you know what? If I had my stuff straightened out, that's a personal story for me. I tell people all the time. I make fun of my wife, and I'm like, you cost me $97 million because one time I suggested that we invest in Bitcoin when it was very low. And then when it was at its peak at 50,000, I looked it up and I called her and I was like, hey, remember that time we wanted to drop about 10 grand in Bitcoin? Yeah, you cost me $97 million. And she laughs and she takes it serious. And I'm like, you know what? Don't beat yourself up, because I'm the one that didn't pull the trigger.
Right.
And not making a decision is a decision too.
That's correct.
So we're both in that one right there.
That's correct. And you can avoid reality, but you can't avoid the consequences of avoiding reality.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Another one that I really love is, you're free to make choices, but you're not free from the consequences of the choices you make. Absolutely.
No, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And that's one thing. Well, and maybe that's also part of it, is that having the pie be big enough so that way you can say, I want to put 10K, but it doesn't take away from anything else, right? If one only has 20K in savings, 10K is a big chunk. But working towards having a good amount of money allows you the freedom to make these kinds of
Yeah, but
risky
that
investments.
goes back to the preparation piece, right? So we're talking about, well, if you only have, we're talking about today. We're not talking about all the work it took to get to this point. Right now, I talk to my son, and I'm just like, you don't have any kids, you don't have any responsibilities. You're. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but your path ahead of you is so free and wide open.
Right.
And once you start tethering all these things and making decisions, and I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, and it's just part of life. But if you have 3 children and a mortgage and a family and all these responsibilities, and you think about dropping 50 grand in Bitcoin versus, hey man, that's one kid's, first 2 years in college. Like we got that tuition right there. Like we're not going to gamble that, at least for me, it's like, we're not going to gamble that shit. We're not going to invest it, again, with air quotes, you know what I mean? In uncertain futures. We're going to lock that situation down. Boom. Working on 2 more. Let's go. So you're always working towards a goal. You're always working towards something. You can't get lost in the, oh shit, man, I'm starting too late. You just got to get going. You got to get moving. One thing, I'll bring it up here live on air, man. I think it was probably about 2 months ago we started talking about your podcast and how you're going to do it and everything. And fuck, here we are. Yeah. We're recording a session in reality. And it's because you bought this piece and you bought that piece and then you put it together and then you reached out and you text and you called this other guy and you start putting all these fucking pieces of the puzzle together. And before you know it, bam, we're on air. There's so many people out there who dream about their dream. And I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, in another mentoring session. We're talking about it and like, hey man, wouldn't it be cool if we opened a Buffalo Wild Wings in Pecos? Fuck it, I was like, that's a great idea. You got an extra $5 million? Are you liquid? Are you? Right. Oh man, I'm just
just talking shit.
It would be cool if we could do it. And I'm like, your goals are so far out of whack.
Right.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could make an extra $500 this next week? Wouldn't it be cool if you could turn those $500 into an investment that gets you $5,000?
Right.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could turn those $5,000 into another investment and leverage that into a $50,000 deal? Wouldn't it be cool if you set markers and moved forward and built another block on top of another block and made your own thing? Like, you know what I mean? Made some kind of future for yourself. Made some kind of whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool? I think the Buffalo Wild Wings.
I just cut right back to that shit. Right.
Yeah. You know why that's not going to happen is because your sights are out of whack. Man.
Right.
You're going to keep shooting.
I'm just trying to talk some shit and have a good time. Why you keep talking facts? Don't confuse the issues
with
the facts, bro.
Don't hurt my feelings with reality.
Right. Oh man.
Yeah, but all of life is like that, Christian.
That is.
We want to make these grandiose plans and whatnot, and then we sit back and like, oh man, that's where regret comes from. We didn't make the move. We didn't do this. Well, you didn't put yourself in a place to strike. The iron was hot. And if you look around and you pay attention all the time, the iron's fucking hot all the time. It's always hot. It's blazing hot.
Blazing hot.
Some of that heat's what you can't take, and that's why they say get the fuck out of the kitchen.
That's what's up.
Just get out of the kitchen.
That's right.
Just go be a consumer. Just go.
That's it.
Go do your thing inside. Live in somebody else's system.
That's it.
And these people, they get used to these walls.
That's right. At a job I worked, the thing I hated the most was, how you doing, brother? Oh, man, I'm living the dream. And then fucking one day, bro, I just broke on his ass. And I was like, I'm going to tell you the truth, dude. You are living the dream, but you're living somebody else's dream. You're living Sam Walton's dream. Yeah. You're living the guy that founded this town's dream. You're living the guy that started O'Reilly Auto Parts. You drive down the street and what do you see? Walmart, Chick-fil-A, da-da-da. You're living those people's dreams. And there is space for you to create your own dreams, but a lot of people don't realize that. And like you said, right? Oh, I want to open a Buffalo Wild Wings. It's very hard. It's funny how people look at the top of the pyramid and they get jealous and pissed at the same time without seeing, like you said, your goals are out of whack. You can get there from here, but it has to be a natural progression. So I do want to take the opportunity to say on air, thank you very much, Pete, because yes, it was several months ago we talked about this. Yeah. And I'm going to quote my long dead best friend, Wallace Waddles. And he says, you're not to compete, you are to create. Yep. And when I reached a certain point in my life, I came to realize that I had certain skills and talents and I had value to bring. And I was blessed enough to work in the oil field with such great people and meet such amazing men and women who have helped me correct my mistakes. So many mistakes I've made. become a better man, become a better father, become a better citizen, become a better member of my community because of the things that I've learned. Now, like money, because I made a lot of money here, money didn't change who I am, and the oil field didn't change who I am, but I feel like it amplified who I am.
Yep.
And I am blessed to tell this story and try to be able to help others because everyone has something to give.
Yep.
And like you, Pete, you find someone who's willing to learn, who is really genuinely interested. I'm willing to go all the way. I'm willing to meet you more than halfway if you're there. If you're not there, peace be upon you, brother. Good luck with you. I'll see you down the road.
Man, I'm gonna interrupt you right there because that's
it.
so fucking important.
Run it, brother. What's
That's so important. You got high performers. You got people that are out there doing shit, building shit. You know what I mean? I've been laughed at so many times, and I've separated myself from the pack that I was around, and I really don't give a shit. And I'm in a time of my life right now where I don't got time for bullshit.
Right.
Now, if you want to dedicate yourself to excellence and there's anything I can do and we connect on some level, I'm all in. But if I get the slightest fucking inclination that you're not all in, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out and you're fucked. You're back in the wild. You're out there. You lost a resource.
Yes.
Because there's very few people out there that mean it. And if you run into me and you're part of my group and you mean it, we're going to rock and roll. We're going to move, and I'm going to do things that are selfless. I'm going to do things that push you forward. I'm going to do things that are going to fucking frustrate you, but it's to grow you and move you and push you. And it's because I owe that life forward, right? Somebody did that to me. I can see that excellence in you. It's my job to stretch you, all those things. But if I get the slightest inclination that you're just goofing around or having fun or all this, I don't got time for that shit, man. Go do that shit somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go grow up. Go beat your head against it. There's so many mistakes out there that are going to eat your fucking lunch. And that shit's contagious like fucking COVID. Son.
Yeah, it is.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh
We're not doing that.
No, it is. And, you know, one thing that I love also, aside from shooting, is I love auto racing. And I've been watching auto racing a lot recently as well. And it just reminds me of so many of the, not just driving skills. Man, it's awesome because I've been wanting to talk about this for a fucking minute. Some of the lessons I learned from auto racing, how they apply to life. Like, for every second, if you're trying to pass a car and you're behind him in line, right? You're on the racing line, let's say, and you want to pass him, you have to go to the left or you have to go to the right. By definition, every inch you go left or right is an inch you're not moving forward. So by definition, going sideways, you're not moving forward.
Yeah.
So I translate that to, I don't waste my time with so much bullshit because every 10 minutes I'm thinking about this bullshit is 10 minutes that I'm not thinking about something that's going to move me and my family forward, my friends forward, and bring value to the community. I'm not going to waste my time with that bullshit. Fuck that.
I don't rubberneck. You know, I've trained myself since I used to live in LA. I used to work out there.
Oh, 10-4.
Traffic was so bad.
Yeah.
And every time you drive by maybe it was an accident, people wouldn't stop and help, but they would turn and look and they would tap their brakes and it causes this fucking traffic jam. Another analogy, kind of what you're saying right now. I've trained myself not to look. I don't look. Right.
Yeah.
And if I can't help, I don't look. If I can help, I'm going to pull over and I'm going to fucking help. I'm going to do
You're
something.
gonna help, right? If I can help, I'm going to help, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But if I can't help, then we're going to move on. I'm going to do the best thing I can and move this traffic along. If you start talking gossip to me, I check the fuck out.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. No, I hate that shit.
I can't get out of the room fast enough.
Straight up. I'll get up and leave. And I grew up in New York City, for those who don't know. And not that it naturally imbues certain characteristics upon a person, but it does do some things to you.
Sure.
Like, same thing. Dude, like, people are yelling at me, hey. Dude, I do not hear you. Because when I'm walking down the street and I've got my thing to do, I cannot be distracted by the 10 billion things that I can be distracted in. So, that's being focused on what you're doing. It, reaches also like that Zen flow point. And my brother and I, we talk about that, doing something as mundane as gardening, but being into it. Like the monks, like these Zen monks, they are so... When you go to some monasteries to be a Buddhist monk, the first thing they do is they set you to work. And you work all day, every day,
Clean
for
that
months.
soul out.
Clean it. Yeah, exactly. No talking.
Good for you.
Just clean. That's it. Just get lost in the work.
That's right.
Just get lost in the work. And as my brother, he picked it up from somebody else, but he's like, it's just work. It's just work.
That's
You're going to
right.
be here anyway. You're going to be here anyway. Do something.
So one of the key features of the mentorship program that we talk about is once you find your why, and we realize we're going to show up, we're going to clock in, however you show up, however you feel it, whatever your task is, we're going to have to do it anyway. Right. So the company facilitates that for me. That's the vehicle. I show up, but I have the choice whether or not I make this a place people want to come work. I have a choice whether I do my job with excellence, whether I encourage other people. And it's one thing that I hate to do is just show up and push my button. I'm going to start singing. I'm going to start talking to people. I'm going to start racing you. I'm going to see how many times you click the button. If I can push it more efficiently, I'm going to see if I can work through my break so I can understand this button better. I'm going to see if I can turn that thing into a fucking rheostat and get rid of the button altogether and be more efficient. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to teach people how to work the button. I tell people, guys, we own the culture. The owner owns the company, but we own the culture. We decide whether or not this is a place people want to come to work. And when people want to come to work and they're happy, they perform better, we get to know each other. And when Pete shows up and he's got a grumpy look on his face, Christian comes on and is like, hey, Pete, are you all right? Well, man, actually, I'm not. Actually, my wife and I got into it this morning. And that's your opportunity right there to intervene.
Yeah.
Don't let me operate that piece of equipment. Don't let me do the huge task that's going to involve 10 people and it's going to affect 100 people. Pull me aside. Have that time. Hey, maybe we switch you out today. No, I'm fine. I'm good. That's the ego talking.
Right.
Hey, I'm worried about you, but I'm also worried about the 100. It's my job. My job is to worry about the whole group.
Right.
And so let's walk through, slow it down, and make sure we get through this day. All right. Know your people. Get involved with them. Be genuine. Care about them. And when you see things that are out of whack, intervene. Have that backbone. Jump in. And sometimes being a leader, guys, sometimes means I'm gonna dig this hole today.
Right.
Why don't you go do this? Why don't you go do that? I'm gonna dig this hole. I'm gonna sweat a little bit. To your point, it's just work.
Yeah.
One of the most glorious things I do is if I'm super frustrated with processes and people is I'll go outside and I'll put on my coveralls and I'm like, just give me a goddamn shovel.
Yeah. I would rather do that.
Clean that soul out.
Yeah, that's it. No, for real. One of the things that I had to do, one of my responsibilities was skimming frac tanks, and sucking oil that had flocculated to the top from our chlorine dioxide treatment. And so I'm there with an EnviroVat, basically a giant industrial vacuum cleaner that's louder than standing next to the Saturn V rocket ready for launch. And so many times I would be there. I'd be like, man, I can't believe I'm a grown man. I'm standing in the desert over this tank, sucking oil. What? Wait a minute. I'm a grown man. I'm getting paid really well to suck this oil off the top of this tank. And I am the God and king of everything that I see because I'm responsible for this location. That gets really heady sometimes. And it's being able to make that flip in your head where, man, this is really dumb. Or, man, this is my opportunity to kick ass. And that's what I told everyone. I would see an invisible sign over my location that said, this is the place where you come to kick ass every day.
That's right.
Only I saw that sign. But it helped me be such a great operator. And here's the kicker. See, I didn't want to be an operator because 14-hour shifts suck. But I knew that if I wanted to not be an operator, I had to be the best operator I could ever be.
That's right.
So that way they moved me out of that position. And that's what happened 11 months later. And I had 12 direct reports in that time. But it's because, like you say, Pete, you have to mean it. You have to bring it every day. And you have to care. And a lot of times your ego has to take a back seat. One of my proudest moments, it's such a small moment. It's so small, but I'm so proud, is one of my operators, he was going to med school. And he got called up on the lottery. And it was this one day where he had to be on the phone because he was going to get this lottery to go to med school, right? I'm not a med student, so I don't know how that works.
Sure.
And he's like, dude, could you please come and take my shift? Dude, by the time he didn't even finish the word shift, and I was already getting dressed to go.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, brother. How am I going to not do this for you? Because this is for your betterment and your advancement. And as a leader, it is my job to do the best I can for you in every aspect, if I really mean it. Jim Rohn says it beautifully. I can forgive an error in judgment, but I can never forgive an error in intention. And if your intention is always pure, you can do and get away with so much if your intentions are pure.
Yeah, I tell my wife that all the time. She's, hey, this happened. So-and-so did this. And I'm like, well, did they do it on purpose? Because, no. So people make mistakes. Just by the way, we're humans. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it's happened to me.
Right.
And we're humans. But I'm really quick to own my mistakes. Hey, this is what happened. Whether I have to pay for it or I got to make it right or I got to make something up or whatever, I'm good for it, right? I tell people, kind of like your sign over your location. I tell people all the time, your signature is on every job you do, and somebody's always watching, even when nobody's watching. When I leave a job site, I want them asking, dude, who was here last? Who did this? I want them to ask. And they've asked enough times where they put me in charge of people.
Right.
So
I'm laughing because I'm remembering a sketch by comedian Eddie Izzard from his show Dressed to Kill. And he says, I tell the truth. He's like, I broke, you're at a party and you break a vase. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I broke a vase, because you want to show you have a strong character, because you hope that someone's going to say, I love to have sex with people with strong characters. Yes, I broke that vase, and I broke this too, and I broke that too.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that sexy, right? But
no.
Another thing I say, and in finding your own why, one of the things, and I don't tell people this a lot, but one of the things I say internally is, I always do my job like my dad's looking over my shoulder. Right. If he would say like, hey man, I'm proud of you, did a good job, gave it hell, then I'm good with it. But if I'm going to just go up there and slap something together and do a poor job, I'm like, oh man, it eats me up. It eats me up. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Let's go back there and make sure we do that right. I know you're tired. Everybody gets tired.
Right.
I know you're upset. Everybody gets upset. I know you're exhausted or whatever the excuse is. Fill in the excuse. But to your point, it's just work. It's just work. It's good for you.
It is. It's very soul cleansing. I find it also very important to be humble and be worthy of everything that I have, and try to work really hard to, because like you say, and I was, and I'm riffing on what you said about your dad. My dad, he passed away, and I was telling some very good friends, like, so I can't go to my dad and say, hey, look, I did this, I did that. Are you proud of me? So where do you take it at that point? And basically you have to be proud of yourself. And as I said earlier, pre-show talk, like, basically you give it up to God.
Yeah.
Because he is the ultimate father. And whatever envisionment you have of God, Judeo-Christian or not, it doesn't matter. The ultimate power of the universe, whatever it is. But that's where you came from, and that's where you're going. And I've told my wife that's my number one relationship, because that's where I came from and that's where I'm going. And I think that some people, you don't have to have a feeling of the supernatural. I don't want to say supernatural, but have a feeling of God. Because some people are like, I don't believe in God. And I find that to be very interesting, because I used to think that way, because I'm a product of Catholic school. So the first thing I did when I got out of Catholic school is I rejected that. But I came back in a different kind of a way. How do you see your faith in God as it works through the way you live your life every day?
So one of the things I've said a few times is, I'm a believer, right? I was raised in Christian faith, Christian-based faith, whether it's through Catholic organizations or non-denominational or what have you. I'm a believer because of the things I've seen in my life. There's absolutely no reason I should be here, right? There's no reason why I should be not only on this planet, but here with my children, with my family. There's no reason. I don't deserve any of this stuff. There's nothing should have happened, right? I've seen so many things with such small odds of succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's where I find the faith. You know, you just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. I tell a story that's really silly. I went to Las Vegas, and I'm kind of drifting off a little bit from the faith, but I went to Las Vegas and I went to a music festival. It's called Sick New World. A lot of the bands I wanted to see grew up, and it's just, man, I was like, man, I can't believe they're all playing in the same place.
Oh, that's cool.
So I told my wife, I'm like, I gotta go. She wanted to go. Anyway, I ended up going by myself. And one thing leads to another. I start pre-gaming and getting ready for that thing. And I start getting into this headspace where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to rock out. And my ticket's bad. So my ticket, and I'm just like, holy shit. My ticket's bad. And I get redirected about 5 different times. And I can barely even see the phone. I can't read the numbers. I call the hotline. I've got to walk 2 miles. I wish I was kidding. I got to walk 2 miles.
What?
I go to a casino where I have to print out a replacement ticket. I come back, and I'm this whole time I'm blitzed out of my brain. And I get back, and that ticket's bad.
What?
And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, it's Mother's Day weekend. The only reason I came, the only reason I rented this hotel room, the flights, the only reason I came was to see these bands, right? And so we keep pushing, and I explore different. Well, finally, I make it into the concert. I finally make it in. I was able to talk to somebody, explain to my situation.
Right.
You know, I don't want to say anything. That's kind of, but I made it in. And when I got home, I started meditating on that one little situation. I was like, man, I was so excited to get in there, and I was like, you know what? It's a power of that grit. It's that grit, that determination, that low odds of things that are going to happen. We're not supposed to, I forget who said that. And it's like, we're not supposed to be here. And I think that's true of all of us. One of the things I can point to is meeting my wife. And if you would have told me at 18 years old that I would have moved to Midland, Texas, first of all, that's out.
Right.
Second of all, that I would have met my wife, absolutely not. I'm not interested in getting married. Third of all, that I would have had 3 boys that changed my life and my perspective on this world, never going to happen. And then, by the way, you're going to work in this industry, this oil and gas industry, where you're going to be 90 feet in the air working with drill pipe. No. You know what? That's so far off from where I envision. There's 100%. Something out there is looking out. Something out there is weaving this reality together. Something's going on that I don't understand. And I tell people all the time, I don't understand the plan, but sometimes I feel like I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to just move forward. Right. I'm supposed to show up. I'm supposed to perform. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Right. And you're showing up every day. In philosophy, I was a philosophy major, and there's a theory called the omnipotentiality of time. And what that states is, if something was ever true once, it's true forever. So the classic example that's given is there once was a Roman emperor named Julius Caesar.
Sure.
Okay. So that's true 4,000 years ago. There was an emperor, right? 4,000 years ago when you were there, he was there, right? 4,000 years before the emperor, you could have said, in 4,000 years, there will be an emperor named Julius Caesar, and you would have been true. So once something is true, it is true forever. How that fits in, I'm not too sure. But I think it's thinking about the question of time. In that, again, we don't think about when we move through the world, we're creating ripples of energy. Because that's all we really are, is we're energy, right? We're atoms, just like everything else is made of atoms. And we're atoms, we're just a very unique form of energy. And coincidentally, we also work in an oil and gas energy field. But being conscious of that, and being conscious, like you say, that there is a plan, because things don't happen, or for regular people, quote unquote, things happen to you. For the extraordinary person, things happen for you. And it's a challenge. And your job is to discover why is that challenge, right? Because as John Maxwell will tell you, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
That's true.
Right? But you have to be open to learning, so you have to be humble to learn. And especially in our business, there's so many guys that are so, and of course, because we're guys, right? And when you're young, you're loaded with hormones, You're loaded with testosterone. Nothing can break you, and there's nothing beyond next weekend.
Yeah, your perspective on this world is different.
Very
Absolutely.
different.
You're indestructible. You know it all. We all go through it. There was a time when I knew it all. There was a time when I was indestructible, right? And then the world humbled me.
Yeah.
Right? Then things happened. Then those systems I didn't plan for, the preparations I didn't make, they caught up with me. And here we are. And so one of the things that I want to leave for my kids as inheritance is that preparation, that discipline, right? I look at my kids and I see reflections of myself. I look at these people, these young supervisors, and I giggle and I got to remind myself. I tell them, I'm not laughing at you, Bubba. I've been there.
Right.
I've thrown my hard hat clear across location. I've told people to get the fuck off my drilling floor.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you to talk to me that way? I'm beating my chest like King Kong. And I've grown from those scenarios, and now I'm blessed to be around good people. And if I can supercharge your path from my mistakes, from my experiences, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I definitely want to do it for my children. One of my goals, like I said, is my mandate on this planet is to push my blood forward. And that's the best way I can see to do it. Instill grit in them, have integrity, show up. You got to make sure you plan your business, create your systems, right? And then map your results. Be honest with yourself. One of the simplest things, like I said, I'm not a smart man. I have to digest this world in a simple format, man. So if you cannot be honest with yourself, you're never going to move forward.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be realistic about what you can. Hey, man, I fucked up. I screwed up. I goofed it. I didn't show up. The result that's happening right now is because something I did that was in my control or didn't do. I didn't have the discipline. And if you don't learn that lesson, it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again until you're sitting on the couch, eating a Twinkie, wondering why this life is so unfair.
Yeah.
So,
Pete, I think that this has been a really very fruitful conversation, and we touched on a lot of topics, and I think that we're probably going to have you back on the show to revisit it.
I'd love to be back, man.
We'd love to be back. And Pete Ibarra of Safety Solutions LLC, this is a gentleman here that you're going to want to keep your eyes on, folks. I'm telling you, follow him on the socials and keep an eye, because this is a man on the move, and you're definitely going to learn a lot. Pete, I want to thank you sincerely for coming in today. It's been tremendous, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you very much,
For
brother.
Safety Solutions and their part, guys, our mission is to make a positive impact in the oil and gas industry. If you have anything that we can do for you, we're just a phone call away, and we mean it. So Come see us.
Come see Pete at Safety Solutions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hey, that was Mr. Pete Ibarra from Safety Solutions LLC. Contact information is going to be in the description below. Thank you very much for sticking by. We've got a lot of great episodes, a lot of great information for everybody out there, especially if you're an operator. Man, we got some stuff especially for you. Stick around. Appreciate it.
The Oilfield Leader Podcast is brought to you by Executive Producer Daniel Corral, Executive Producer Jim Lynn, Executive Producer and Voice Talent, me, Mad Mac, Production Assistant Caleb Knott. The Oilfield Leader Podcast is produced and hosted by Christian Lombardini. Copyright 2023. The Oilfield Leader and Christian Lombardini, all rights reserved. Peace.